There is a moment when the veil of the familiar lifts, and you find yourself standing at the edge of the unknown. The path ahead is obscured, and the comfort of certainty fades into the background. In this moment, the human spirit is called to summon its deepest courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the resolve to move forward despite it. It is the choice to engage with life's uncertainties with openness and integrity. To live courageously is to accept that you cannot control the future, yet you can control your response. This acceptance is the foundation of existential courage, a courage that stems from the recognition that meaning is forged in the crucible of uncertainty. How do we cultivate such courage? It begins with awareness. Awareness of your fears, your limitations, and your strengths. It requires an honest encounter with yourself, without illusion or denial. This encounter is not comfortable, but it is necessary. It strips away the masks and defenses that shield you from pain, but also block your growth. In this raw state, you come face to face with your authentic self, the self capable of great fear and great love, of despair and hope. This self is not fixed or static, but fluid and evolving. It is shaped by your choices, your reflections, and your actions. To live courageously is to embrace this evolution, to accept that you are a work in progress, constantly becoming. The unknown ahead is not a void to be feared, but a canvas to be painted with the colors of your meaning. Each choice, each act of courage, adds a brushstroke to this masterpiece. The fear of the unknown may never fully disappear, but it becomes a backdrop against which your courage shines more brightly. Imagine a ship setting sail into uncharted waters. The captain does not have a map for every wave or current, but trusts in their skills, their crew, and their purpose. So too can you navigate life's uncertainties with skill, support, and a clear sense of meaning. Support often comes from connection. Courage is not solely an individual endeavor. It flourishes in community. Shared vulnerability strengthens bonds and offers reassurance that you are not alone in your journey. When you share your fears and hopes, you invite others to do the same, creating a circle of courage and meaning. This circle is a powerful force, transforming isolation into solidarity and fear into collective strength. Within this circle, meaning takes root and grows. Meaning is not a solitary pursuit, but a communal gift. It is found in relationships, shared values, and mutual support. As you cultivate courage, nurture these connections. They will sustain you when the unknown feels overwhelming. Furthermore, courage calls you to action. It demands that you do not remain passive or paralyzed, but engage actively with life. Even small acts, speaking your truth, extending kindness, pursuing a goal, are expressions of courage. These acts create momentum, reinforcing your capacity to face uncertainty. In action, you embody your meaning. This embodiment is the essence of living authentically. It bridges the gap between thought and experience, between ideals and reality. Living courageously transforms fear from a barrier into a catalyst. It propels you toward growth, transformation, and deeper meaning. As you step into this act of courage, remember that the unknown is also a realm of possibility. It holds the potential for discovery, creativity, and renewal. The very openness required to face fear also opens you to new experiences and insights. Embrace this paradox. The unknown is both daunting and inviting. By embracing it, you affirm your freedom and your humanity. As you stand at the precipice of the unknown, ask yourself, what does courage truly mean in this vast expanse of uncertainty? Is it the loud roar of defiance, or the quiet persistence of faith? Courage often reveals itself not in grand gestures, but in the subtle, steadfast choices to keep moving forward when every step feels uncertain. Viktor Frankl taught that meaning is discovered, not given. It emerges not from comfort, but from the struggle, not from certainty, but from the willingness to confront ambiguity with an open heart. This process demands courage, the courage to embrace vulnerability, to admit fear, and yet to act anyway. When fear grips you, it signals the edges of your comfort zone, the boundary between what is known and what is possible. This boundary is the threshold of growth. Each step you take across it, no matter how tentative, expands your capacity for meaning. Imagine a child learning to walk. The fear of falling is ever present, yet the child persists, driven by an instinctive trust in discovery. This trust, this courage, is innate within you as well. It is the seed from which your resilience and purpose grow. To nurture this seed, cultivate presence. Fear often pulls you into imagined futures or past regrets, stealing the richness of now. Presence roots you in the current moment, where courage is born and where meaning unfolds. Practices such as mindful breathing, reflective journaling, or simply pausing to observe your thoughts can anchor you amidst a storm of uncertainty. They open a space where fear loses its tyranny, and you reclaim your agency. This agency is a powerful force. It reminds you that while you cannot control all circumstances, you retain the freedom to choose your response. This freedom is the wellspring of courage and the foundation of meaning. Moreover, courage is intertwined with hope. Hope is not naive optimism, but a deliberate orientation toward possibility. It is the light that flickers within, urging you onward through darkness. Hope sustains courage when the path is steep and the destination unclear. It nurtures resilience and invites you to dream beyond your current fears. When you cultivate hope, you also cultivate compassion for yourself and for others. Compassion softens the harsh judgments fear can cast and opens your heart to connection and understanding. These qualities form a triumvirate: courage, hope, and compassion. Together, they create a fertile ground for meaning to take root and flourish. In this fertile ground, your actions gain depth and purpose. Every choice becomes a meaningful expression of your commitment to living authentically. As you embrace the unknown with courage, you also invite transformation. You become a participant in the ongoing evolution of yourself and your story. This transformation is often subtle: a shift in perspective, a change in attitude, a new understanding. But its effects ripple outward, shaping your experience and your impact on the world. Remember, the journey through fear to meaning is not linear or predictable. It twists and turns, with moments of clarity and confusion, progress and retreat. Be patient with yourself as you navigate this path. Each step, no matter how small, is a victory. As Act 2 unfolds, carry these reflections with you. Courage is the bridge between fear and meaning. Presence is the anchor in uncertainty. Hope and compassion are the companions that light your way. Together they empower you to face the unknown and to discover the profound meaning that lies within. In the landscape of the unknown, courage often feels fragile, like a flickering flame buffeted by the winds of doubt and fear. Yet it is precisely this fragility that reveals its profound strength. A flame that wavers but does not extinguish embodies resilience. A resilience born not from invulnerability but from persistence. Your courage is this flame. It may falter, but it endures. It invites you to keep walking, keep questioning, keep seeking meaning even when the path is obscured. Viktor Frankl's wisdom reminds us that suffering and uncertainty are not meaningless obstacles but catalysts for finding purpose. When you face the unknown with courage, you engage in a sacred dialogue between your pain and your potential. This dialogue transforms your experience. It shifts your focus from what is lost or feared to what can be gained and created. Within this transformation lies the essence of existential freedom, the freedom to choose your attitude, your response, and your meaning regardless of circumstances. To cultivate this freedom, nurture awareness. Notice the stories your mind tells about the future. Are they stories of doom or possibility? Are they anchored in fact or fueled by anxiety? Challenge the narratives that imprison you and create space for new stories. Stories of hope, growth, and meaning. This conscious rewriting of your internal narrative is a powerful act of courage. It rewires your perception and opens you to new possibilities. Moreover, courage requires surrender. Not surrender to fear, but surrender to the flow of life. It is the paradoxical act of letting go and holding on simultaneously. Letting go of the illusion of control frees you to engage fully with the present. Holding on to your values and purpose grounds you in the midst of change. This balance between surrender and steadfastness is the dance of courage. As you learn this dance, you discover that the unknown is not a void, but a fertile ground for creativity and renewal. It invites you to invent new ways of being, to explore uncharted territories within yourself and the world. Creativity becomes a sacred response to fear, an expression of your unique voice and vision. Engage with this creativity. Write, paint, speak, build, or simply imagine. These acts affirm your existence and your meaning. These acts affirm your existence and your meaning. In community, courage flourishes further. Shared vulnerability creates bonds that support and sustain. Reach out to others, share your journey, and listen to theirs. In this exchange, you find not only comfort but inspiration. Together, you form a tapestry of courage and meaning stronger than any single thread. As this segment closes, hold these truths close. Courage is both fragile and strong. It is a practice, a choice, and a gift. In embracing the unknown, you step into the fullness of your humanity. Your journey continues, rich with meaning and possibility. As you journey deeper into the realm of uncertainty, notice how the mind often oscillates between hope and despair, light and shadow. This oscillation is natural, part of the human condition. Yet it is not the oscillation itself that defines you, but the space you create between the swings. This space, often found in stillness and reflection, is where meaning quietly grows. It is the fertile ground where courage takes root and expands. In this space, you learn to observe your fears without becoming them, to acknowledge uncertainty without surrendering to it. Viktor Frankl's insight teaches us that meaning emerges not despite suffering, but through it. The crucible of pain and fear can forge a deeper connection to life's purpose. This connection transforms your relationship with fear from one of avoidance to one of engagement. When fear becomes a companion rather than an adversary, you gain a new perspective. Fear signals what you value most. It points to areas ripe for growth and meaning. By listening to fear with curiosity rather than resistance, you open pathways to profound self-discovery. This self-discovery is not a solitary endeavor. It unfolds within the context of relationships and community. Shared experiences of vulnerability create a collective courage that uplifts and sustains. Together, you build a reservoir of strength that replenishes when individual reserves run low. As you cultivate this collective courage, remember that meaning is found in the interplay of giving and receiving. Acts of kindness, empathy, and support are expressions of meaning made tangible. They remind you that your existence resonates beyond the self, touching others in unseen ways. In the face of the unknown, your actions, no matter how small, echo with significance. Each choice to love, to hope, to persevere becomes a thread in the tapestry of your life's meaning. This tapestry is not woven from certainty, but from the courageous embrace of uncertainty. It reflects your resilience, your growth, and your unwavering commitment to authenticity. As Act 2 progresses, hold these reflections as guiding stars. The space between fear and hope is sacred. Meaning grows in engagement with uncertainty, and courage is both personal and communal. With each step forward, you weave your story of meaning, illuminated by the light of existential courage. In this unfolding journey, you come to realize that the fear of tomorrow is not merely a challenge to be overcome, but an invitation to awaken. It calls you to a deeper awareness of your own existence, your vulnerabilities, your strengths, your capacities for love and resilience. This awakening is a subtle revolution within the soul. It disrupts old patterns of avoidance and denial, urging you instead to face life's uncertainties with honesty and courage. Such honesty is a radical act. It strips away the comforting illusions that shield you from pain, but also imprison you in fear. By embracing your fear, you reclaim your power. You transform from a passive observer of life's trials into an active participant in your own story. Viktor Frankl's teachings remind us that even in the most harrowing circumstances, meaning can be found. And, through it, freedom. Freedom to choose your attitude, to find purpose, and to live authentically. This freedom is the ultimate act of courage. It is the foundation upon which you build your resilience and your hope. As you navigate this terrain, cultivate mindfulness, the practice of being fully present with whatever arises. Mindfulness grounds you in the here and now, dissolving the spirals of worry about the future. It opens your eyes to the richness of each moment, revealing the subtle gifts hidden within. Through mindfulness, fear loses its grip and meaning becomes more accessible. Additionally, seek connection. Reach out to others who journey with you, Shared vulnerability creates a space where courage grows exponentially. Together, you form a community of meaning, supporting, inspiring, and holding one another. In this community, your fear becomes a shared human experience, less isolating and more manageable. It reminds you that you are part of something larger, woven into the fabric of collective existence. As Act 2 deepens, remember that courage is not a fixed trait, but a dynamic practice. It requires daily commitment, patience, and self-compassion. Each act of courage, no matter how small, propels you forward on the path of meaning. Let this commitment be your guiding light amid the uncertainty. With every step, you forge a life of significance, one that embraces fear not as an enemy but as a companion on the journey. As you stand at the crossroads of fear and courage, consider how the unknown is both a challenge and a gift. It is a challenge because it confronts you with uncertainty, with the absence of guarantees. Yet, it is a gift because it opens the space for possibility. Possibility to grow, to learn, to reinvent yourself. Viktor Frankl spoke of the will to meaning, the fundamental human drive not merely to survive, but to find purpose in existence. This will is most profoundly awakened in moments of uncertainty, when the future is unclear and the mind seeks anchors. The courage to face the unknown arises from this will to meaning. It is the determination to find purpose even when the path is hidden. To cultivate this courage, cultivate clarity about your values. What principles guide your decisions? What truths resonate deeply within your heart? These values are your compass in the fog of uncertainty. When fear clouds your vision, return to these guiding stars. Let them illuminate your way. In addition to clarity, nurture flexibility. Life rarely unfolds as planned. The capacity to adapt, to bend without breaking, is essential to courage. Flexibility does not mean abandoning your purpose, but rather holding it lightly enough to adjust course when needed. Like a reed that sways in the wind, you remain rooted yet responsive. This balance of steadfastness and adaptability is the hallmark of existential courage. Moreover, remember that courage is strengthened through reflection. Take time regularly to contemplate your experiences, your fears, and your growth. Journaling, meditation, or deep conversations with trusted companions can facilitate this reflection. In reflection, you gain insight and reinforce your commitment to meaning. Also, embrace the role of gratitude. Gratitude shifts focus from what is lacking or feared to what is present and valued. It nourishes your spirit and bolsters resilience. Even in difficult times, there is always something to appreciate. A breath, a smile, a moment of peace. These moments are beacons that guide you through darkness. As you cultivate these practices, clarity, flexibility, reflection, gratitude, you build a foundation for courage that sustains you. This foundation supports you in stepping into the unknown with an open heart and steady mind. The unknown ceases to be a source of paralyzing fear and becomes a horizon of possibility. As Act 2 unfolds further, keep these truths close. Courage arises from the will to meaning. Values are your compass. Flexibility is your strength. Reflection deepens understanding. Gratitude fuels resilience. With these guides, you journey onward, embracing the unknown and discovering the profound meaning that awaits. The unknown is a vast ocean stretching before you, sometimes calm, sometimes stormy. Your journey across it demands more than bravery. It demands trust. Trust in yourself, trust in the process, trust in the unfolding of life's mysteries. Viktor Frankl reminded us that meaning is not a destination but a journey, discovered moment by moment. This journey calls you to release the need for certainty and to embrace the dance of uncertainty with open arms. When fear threatens to overwhelm, remember that it is but one part of your experience. Beneath fear lies a wellspring of resilience and potential waiting to be tapped. Cultivate awareness of this deeper self through stillness and contemplation. Let silence speak its truths. In these moments, courage arises quietly, not as a roar but as a steady flame. This flame can illuminate even the darkest corners of your mind, guiding you forward. Moreover, recognize the power of choice. In any circumstance, you possess the freedom to choose your response. This freedom is your birthright and your power. It is the core of your humanity. Choosing courage over fear is an act of self-liberation. Each choice strengthens your ability to face the unknown and infuse your life with meaning. In this journey, you are not alone. Others walk beside you, each navigating their own seas of uncertainty. Reach out, share your stories, listen deeply. In connection, you find solidarity and support. Shared courage multiplies. It creates a network of meaning that spans individual experiences. Let these connections be a refuge and a source of inspiration. As you navigate this path, remember that setbacks are part of growth. They do not signify failure but invitations to deepen your understanding and renew your commitment. With patience and compassion, transform obstacles into stepping stones. Your journey is a living process, fluid, evolving, and uniquely yours. As Act 2 continues to unfold, hold close these guiding principles. Trust in the journey, cultivate awareness, exercise your freedom of choice, seek connection, embrace setbacks as growth, and practice patience and compassion. With these tools, you step boldly into the unknown, ready to discover the richness of meaning that awaits. The journey through uncertainty is not a path of ease. It demands that you confront discomfort, that you tolerate ambiguity, and that you hold space for paradox. Yet, it is within this demanding terrain that your spirit stretches and your meaning deepens. Paradox is the pulse of existence, the simultaneous presence of opposing truths. You are both fragile and strong, fearful and courageous, lost and found. To live fully is to embrace these paradoxes without rushing to resolve them. Fear of tomorrow embodies paradox. It is a source of pain, yet also a gateway to growth. It signals danger, but also possibility. It can constrict or expand your sense of self depending on how you engage with it. When you resist fear, it tightens its grip. When you accept it, it becomes a teacher. This acceptance does not mean resignation, but a willingness to engage honestly with your reality. It invites you to observe your fear without judgment, to ask, what is this fear telling me about what I value? What parts of myself am I neglecting or denying? Through this inquiry, fear transforms from a tyrant into a guide. It reveals pathways to deeper understanding and renewed commitment to meaning. Moreover, remember that meaning is often found in the smallest details: the warmth of sunlight on your skin, the sound of a loved one's voice, the rhythm of your breath. Mindfulness opens you to these details, grounding you in the present and lessening the pull of anxious anticipation. As you cultivate mindfulness, your perspective shifts. The future becomes less a threat and more a mystery to be explored. This shift nurtures courage, the courage to live fully in the face of the unknown. Furthermore, courage is cultivated in community. Sharing your fears and hopes with others creates a shared space where vulnerability is met with empathy. This mutual openness strengthens bonds and builds resilience. Together, you create a collective meaning greater than any individual experience. Seek out and nurture these connections. They are vital anchors in the sea of uncertainty. As you build your community of courage, also honor solitude. Time alone offers space for reflection and renewal. Balance these relational and solitary aspects to sustain your journey. Your inner world is as important as your outer relationships. Engage in practices that nourish your spirit: meditation, journaling, creative expression. These practices deepen your connection to self and meaning. Finally, cultivate patience. The journey toward meaning is ongoing and non-linear. Progress may feel slow or invisible at times. Trust in the process. Each step, no matter how small, contributes to your growth. Be gentle with yourself, allowing space for setbacks and rest. In patience, you find resilience and the strength to continue. As this segment of Act 2 closes, hold these reflections. Embrace paradox, cultivate mindfulness, nurture community and solitude, and practice patience. Together, these guideposts light your way through uncertainty toward a richer, more meaningful existence. In the delicate balance between fear and hope, between what is certain and what remains hidden, you discover the essence of human existence. This balance is not a static point, but a dynamic dance requiring continual adjustment and awareness. It invites you to cultivate resilience, a resilience that is both tender and fierce. Resilience is often misunderstood as mere toughness or endurance. But true resilience is more profound. It is the capacity to bend without breaking, to adapt without losing your core self, to face adversity with openness and grace. It is born in the willingness to experience pain and uncertainty without retreat. Viktor Frankl observed that even in the darkest moments, individuals can find meaning by choosing their attitude towards suffering. This choice is the root of resilience. It is the sacred space where freedom resides. When you practice this choice, you reclaim your power. You transform suffering into a source of growth and insight. This transformation is not automatic. It requires conscious effort, reflection, and sometimes support from others. Engage deeply with your experiences, asking yourself what lessons they hold. Let your pain inform your compassion for yourself and for others. In this way, resilience becomes a bridge connecting your struggles with your capacity for meaning. Moreover, resilience is nurtured through rituals and routines. These provide stability and predictability amid chaos, grounding you in the present moment. Whether it is a morning meditation, a walk in nature, or an evening reflection, rituals create sacred time for restoration. They remind you that no matter how turbulent life may become, there are constants you can rely on: your breath, your body, your values. In cultivating resilience, also embrace forgiveness. Forgiveness is a powerful act of liberation, freeing you from the chains of bitterness and resentment. It is not about condoning harm, but about releasing yourself from its hold. Forgiveness opens space for healing and renewed meaning. It allows you to move forward unburdened by the past. In the interplay of resilience and forgiveness, you find a path toward wholeness. This path is not linear nor easy, but it is rich with discovery and growth. As you continue, hold compassion for yourself as you would for a dear friend. Acknowledge your humanity, your imperfections, and your strengths. Self-compassion fosters courage by creating a safe inner environment where growth can occur. It counters the harsh inner critic that fear often awakens. By nurturing self-compassion, you empower yourself to face uncertainty with gentleness and determination. Furthermore, cultivate a sense of purpose beyond yourself. Meaning often deepens when connected to something larger: a community, a cause, a belief. This connection expands your perspective and anchors you in the flow of life. It transforms individual fear into collective hope. As Act 2 progresses, keep these truths close. Resilience is a dynamic dance. Suffering can be a teacher. Rituals ground you. Forgiveness liberates. Self-compassion empowers. Purpose connects. Together, these qualities sustain your journey through the unknown and toward meaning. As you delve deeper into this journey, you begin to sense that fear, far from being merely an adversary, is a signal. A messenger pointing toward the areas of your life that most require your attention and care. The fear of tomorrow is not only about what may happen, but about the parts of you that are longing for alignment, for purpose, for renewal. When you treat fear as a guide rather than an enemy, you discover insights hidden within its shadows. Fear reveals your attachments, your hopes, and the silent callings of your soul. It urges you to examine what truly matters. What relationships nourish you? What work brings you alive? What truths are you avoiding because they demand change? This inquiry can be unsettling, but it is the very soil from which meaning grows. To face fear is to face yourself, to meet the raw and unfiltered essence of your humanity. Viktor Frankl spoke often about the importance of responsibility. The responsibility to life itself, to the tasks that call uniquely to you, to the people who rely on you, and to your own potential. Responsibility is what transforms fear into fuel. It directs the energy of anxiety toward purposeful action. Every day you are invited to respond, to choose what kind of person you will be, regardless of circumstances. This choice, though small in each moment, becomes monumental over time. It is the thread that weaves the tapestry of your life. Alongside responsibility comes humility. Humility reminds you that you do not have to know everything or control everything to move forward. It allows you to accept help, to admit uncertainty, and to trust that life unfolds in ways your mind cannot always predict. This trust does not eliminate fear, but it softens its edges. It allows you to coexist with uncertainty without being consumed by it. Equally vital is the cultivation of wonder. Even in the midst of fear, wonder keeps your heart open. It reminds you that life, despite its fragility, is astonishing. a dance of moments, each one unrepeatable and sacred. Pause to notice the small marvels, the warmth of sunlight filtering through a window, the quiet pulse of your own breath, the way a stranger's kindness can shift an entire day. These moments do not erase uncertainty, but they illuminate it, making the darkness less daunting. Wonder, when combined with responsibility and humility, becomes a powerful antidote to despair. It draws you back into the present, where meaning is not an abstract idea, but a lived experience. And when despair whispers, because it will, respond with connection. Reach for the hand of another, for a conversation, for the quiet strength found in shared humanity. Despair cannot survive where connection and meaning thrive. As this act moves forward, hold close these companions. Fear as a guide, responsibility as a compass, humility as a grounding force, wonder as a light, and connection as a lifeline. Together, they create a foundation strong enough to hold you as you navigate the unknown, transforming the fear of tomorrow into the courage to live fully today. The fear of tomorrow, though heavy, carries within it a strange potential, a seed of transformation waiting to be nurtured. Each time you choose to face it, even in the smallest ways, that seed begins to grow. It sprouts not into certainty, but into strength, resilience, and a deeper sense of meaning that nothing external can easily shake. It is tempting to imagine that peace will come when the unknown finally becomes known, when the questions find their answers, when the path clears entirely before you. But life rarely grants such clarity in advance. Peace does not wait at the end of the road. It is cultivated along the way in the very moments you decide to keep moving despite not seeing the full horizon. Viktor Frankl's voice echoes softly in this truth. It is not the circumstances themselves that determine the quality of our lives, but the stance we take toward them. The storm may not subside, the uncertainty may not vanish, but your inner posture, your ability to lean into life with trust and purpose, can transmute fear into fuel. This transmutation happens in stages, often invisible ones. It begins with awareness, the simple yet radical act of noticing what is without judgment. You feel the tension in your chest, the racing of your thoughts, the urge to escape. You see these not as enemies, but as signals, messages pointing towards something deeper within. The second stage is acceptance, not resignation, not surrender to despair, but the acknowledgement that fear exists and holds lessons. By turning toward it, you invite those lessons to reveal themselves. And then comes the third stage, action. Small, deliberate steps toward what you value most. A single phone call, a moment of stillness instead of avoidance, a word of kindness to another when your instinct is to retreat. These are not grand gestures, but they are profound. They shift the direction of your story, one choice at a time. Every small act of courage is a brick laid in the foundation of a meaningful life. And soon those bricks form a path, not one free of uncertainty, but one steady enough to walk with dignity. Along this path, suffering will still appear. It is the unavoidable companion of any life fully lived. But suffering, too, can be reframed. Frankl often spoke of tragic optimism, the ability to maintain hope and find meaning even when faced with unavoidable pain. This does not mean denying reality. It means daring to believe that even in darkness, light can be found or created. Perhaps that light is in the service of another. Often when fear feels paralyzing, the quickest way to loosen its grip is to step outside yourself and tend to someone else's need. Service pulls you out of the spiral of self-absorption and places you in the flow of connection, where meaning thrives. Perhaps the light is in creation, the act of bringing something into the world that did not exist before. A line of writing, a piece of music, a gesture of beauty, however small. Creation affirms life's worth in a way words cannot fully capture. Or perhaps the light is in simply enduring with grace, holding steady even when nothing changes. There is meaning even in the steadfast bearing of what must be borne, when it is done with a heart willing to find purpose and perseverance. And in all these moments, whether of service, creation, or endurance, you rediscover a truth easily forgotten. You are not merely at the mercy of life. You are a co-creator in it. Fear may knock at the door, but you decide whether it rules the house. Each decision, however minor, is a brushstroke on the canvas of your existence. The image may not be clear yet, but the act of painting, of choosing, is itself the meaning. The more you lean into this, the more the fear of tomorrow shifts. It no longer feels like an immovable wall, but like a shadow cast by the unknown. And shadows, as you learn, only exist because there is light somewhere near. Seek that light. Not by waiting passively, but by actively orienting yourself toward what brings life, what sparks hope, what calls your soul forward. These are your true North Stars, guiding you through the fog. And as you walk, remember to pause, not just in fear, but in gratitude. Gratitude for the smallest certainties. The inhale and exhale that continue despite uncertainty. The fact that even now, possibility still lives in each passing moment. Gratitude softens the sharpness of fear and lets you taste the richness of what already is. With every pause, with every act of awareness, acceptance, and courage, you rewrite the way you meet tomorrow, not as a prisoner of dread, but as a participant in life's unfolding mystery. This is the quiet revolution that takes place within. The shift from resisting the unknown to walking with it as a companion, learning from it, and allowing it to shape you into someone who not only survives uncertainty, but draws meaning from it. There comes a moment, somewhere along this path, when the fear of tomorrow feels less like a shadow chasing you, and more like a presence walking beside you. You begin to realize that fear, when no longer resisted, can be softened, even befriended. It becomes a reminder, not of doom, but of your own aliveness, your own yearning to hold on to what matters, to protect what gives your existence weight and color. This shift does not happen all at once. It is the result of countless quiet choices. Each time you resist the urge to run from discomfort, each time you pause and breathe instead of retreating, you grow a little stronger. You start to trust yourself, not because the world has become safer, but because you have discovered that even in its uncertainty, you can endure. Endurance is not a passive state. It is active, alive. It is the art of standing firm even when nothing around you feels stable. And from endurance, something unexpected grows: dignity. The dignity of knowing you can walk through nights of doubt and still find morning light. The dignity of carrying your suffering in a way that transforms it into testimony, into a silent proof that meaning can survive even when answers do not. In that dignity, there is a quiet power, a power that does not need to announce itself because it is felt rather than seen. Others notice it, not through words, but through the way your presence feels. A calm steadiness, a kind of grounded hope, not because life is easy, but because you have learned that even the unknown cannot take away your ability to choose your stance. Viktor Frankl understood this deeply. He saw in the bleakest conditions imaginable that those who could find meaning, even a fragment of it, possessed a strength untouched by external chaos. Their hope was not naive. It was anchored in the belief that suffering itself could be turned into a bridge, carrying them toward a future where their endurance would not be wasted, where their pain could become testimony, perhaps even gift. And so, as you move further along this journey, consider this. What if fear is not asking you to run or hide, but to create? To create meaning where there seems to be none. To create a story that can hold both your pain and your hope, your questions and your courage. Creation is not always grand or visible. Sometimes it is as subtle as how you choose to treat the next person you see, how you hold yourself when no one is watching, how you choose to believe, even faintly, in a tomorrow worth facing. Creation, like endurance, is a defiance against despair. Every word you write, every act of kindness, every breath taken consciously rather than mechanically, is a declaration. I am more than my fear. I am not reduced by the uncertainty of tomorrow. And in those moments, even fleeting, something profound happens. The future, which once loomed as a faceless threat, becomes an open field again. Still uncertain, still unpredictable, but now, a place where possibility and terror coexist, and where your courage tips the balance. The more you lean into this, the more you see that life's meaning is not found in erasing fear, but in learning how to carry it without letting it decide everything for you. Fear becomes lighter, not because it vanishes, but because you grow strong enough to hold it. And with each passing day, you understand a deeper truth. You are not here to avoid the unknown, but to meet it, to walk into it with trembling hands if you must, but with open eyes. Because the unknown is where growth resides, where transformation blooms, where your truest self is often revealed. When you accept this, fear no longer feels like the enemy it once was. It becomes part of the landscape, like the shadows that remind you of light. And as you keep moving, step by step, a strange peace begins to settle. Not the peace of a life without uncertainty, but the peace of a heart that has made peace with uncertainty itself. And as you walk further into this unfolding, you begin to sense how much of your suffering was never about the future itself, but about the tension between your longing for certainty and the reality that life offers none. The fear of tomorrow, in its essence, is a mirror. It reflects your attachment to knowing, to controlling, to holding life still so that you might feel safe within it. Yet, the deeper you travel, the more you see that this control was always an illusion. Life is not a fixed image. It is a river, and rivers cannot be frozen without losing their very nature. To demand absolute certainty from life is to demand it cease to be alive. It is to demand that the rivers stop flowing so you might feel steadier on its banks. But a stagnant river brings no renewal, no change, no discovery. When you accept this truth, something within loosens. You stop clutching so tightly. You breathe a little deeper. You realize that security, the kind you've been taught to chase, was never about eliminating risk. It was about cultivating a trust within yourself so deep that even the river's shifting currents could not drown you. Viktor Frankl often wrote of the ultimate freedom each person holds, the freedom to choose their response. You cannot stop the currents. You cannot halt the passage of time or guarantee tomorrow's safety. But you can choose, here and now, how you will meet the waters as they rise around you. That choice, though it may seem small in the moment, is the foundation upon which a meaningful life is built. It is the difference between drifting aimlessly, driven solely by fear, and steering yourself, however shakily, toward the horizon with purpose. And here lies the paradox. When you stop demanding that life give you guarantees, the fear of tomorrow softens. You begin to notice the present again, the way the light moves across the room, the steady rhythm of your breath, the presence of another soul beside you. These small certainties, humble as they are, become anchors more reliable than any imagined control ever was. From these anchors, you can act, not react, but act with intention. You can choose to build rather than withdraw, to love rather than guard yourself, to create rather than wait for a safer moment that may never arrive. And as you act, life responds. Not always as you expect, but it responds. The very act of engaging, of stepping into the unknown rather than retreating, creates ripples. Ripples in your mind, your relationships, your path forward. These ripples carry meaning far beyond what your fear can comprehend. This is how courage grows. Not as a sudden revelation, but as a quiet accumulation of moments when you decided to keep showing up. To answer the day, even trembling, instead of hiding from it. To say yes to life, despite not knowing where it will lead. With each of these moments, your inner posture changes. You stop seeing the unknown as a predator and start seeing it as a teacher, a force that shapes you, stretches you, and invites you to discover the depths of your own spirit. And in those depths, you encounter something even greater than courage. You find freedom, not freedom from suffering or risk, but freedom from the chains of avoidance and paralysis. Freedom to live as a participant, not just a bystander in your own story. This freedom carries a weight of its own. The weight of responsibility. For when you realize you can choose, you also realize that no one else can walk this road for you. Meaning will not be delivered. It must be made, moment by the choices you dare to make. And yet, this responsibility is not a burden when embraced fully. It is a calling. It is the invitation to step into your life not as a victim of its uncertainty, but as its co-creator. The fear of tomorrow will never vanish entirely, because tomorrow will always hold the unknown. But in time, you will see that this fear no longer needs to suffocate you. It can live beside you, quietly, while you continue to breathe, build, and believe. And perhaps one day, you will look back and see that what once felt like a haunting presence was, in truth, the force that led you to the deepest parts of yourself, the parts that could withstand the river, the night, and the silence, and stillness, and still whisper, I choose to live. There's a quiet shift that begins to unfold when you truly grasp that your fear is not a curse, but a compass. It points toward what matters most, even as it shakes your voice and tightens your chest. Fear rarely rises for what is trivial. It rises for the things your soul deems precious, your relationships, your dreams, your fragile sense of purpose. And so, to listen to fear without being devoured by it is to listen to the deepest truths within you. But to listen does not mean to obey. Fear will tell you to freeze, to wait for a perfect certainty that will never arrive. Fear will whisper that comfort is safer than courage, that retreat will preserve you. And in those whispers, you will feel the tension between the life you are living and the life that is calling you. This tension is not a flaw. It is the very ground of transformation. To deny it is to stagnate, to suppress the friction that forges growth. To embrace it is to allow yourself to be reshaped by what unsettles you. Viktor Frankl spoke of this often. The tension between what we are and what we are yet to become is where meaning lives. It is in that stretch, sometimes painful, sometimes luminous, that we feel most alive. Meaning is not found in comfort, but in the space where your longing for purpose pulls you beyond the familiar. And so, the fear of tomorrow, once seen only as a threat, can become a sacred summons. A summons to step beyond numbness, beyond routine, beyond the cage of certainty, into a life that, though uncertain, feels undeniably real. But how do you step forward when every instinct begs you to retreat? You begin by anchoring yourself not in certainty, but in presence. The breath in your lungs, the ground beneath your feet, the pulse of the moment, however imperfect. Presence is your refuge, the place where fear loosens its grip and clarity begins to seep in. From this presence, you can take the smallest of steps. Not a leap into the unknown, but a step toward what aligns with your deepest values. Perhaps it is speaking a truth long silenced. Perhaps it is choosing connection over isolation. Perhaps it is simply enduring the discomfort with your eyes open, refusing to shut down. These steps, modest as they seem, are where transformation begins. Over time, they weave together, and you realize you are no longer the same person who once trembled at the thought of tomorrow. You are still tender, still human, but something within you has deepened, solidified. And then, almost imperceptibly, you notice another shift. Fear begins to coexist with something else. A quiet gratitude. Gratitude not for the fear itself, but for what it has revealed. For the truths it has forced you to face. For the strength it has drawn out of hiding. For the clarity about what truly matters when the illusions of control dissolve. This gratitude does not erase the unknown, but it reframes it. Tomorrow no longer feels solely like a threat. It feels like a canvas. Still blank, still uncertain, but ready for the brushstrokes you will dare to make. And in this space, you come to understand that the meaning you seek is not waiting in some distant, fully formed future. It is here now, in every choice to act, to love, to create, to endure. The future may hold outcomes you cannot control, but meaning does not live in outcomes. It lives in the posture you take as you meet them. This is where freedom emerges. The freedom Frankl spoke of so often. Not freedom from suffering, not freedom from uncertainty, but freedom to face them as a conscious, willing participant. Freedom to stand in the flow of life, not as a victim swept away, but as one who chooses, again and again, to keep shaping, keep giving, keep becoming. And as you taste this freedom, you realize something extraordinary. The fear of tomorrow no longer feels like a wall you must scale. It feels like a door, narrow and dark perhaps, but a door nonetheless. A door through which you must pass to step into the fullest version of yourself. Each time you walk through, trembling or steady, you emerge not as someone who has conquered fear, but as someone who has befriended it. Someone who can carry its weight without being crushed. And it is in that carrying, that quiet coexisting with fear, that you discover the truest form of courage. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to keep moving, to keep giving, to keep believing that tomorrow, however uncertain, is still worth meeting. Each time you decide to step forward despite trembling, you are crafting a narrative that reshapes the very fabric of your life. It is not a story of avoidance or of waiting for a world without risk. It is a story of becoming someone who can hold risk, someone who can carry fear and still move toward what is meaningful. And this story, while still unfolding, becomes a source of quiet strength not only for yourself, but for those who watch you, often silently, wondering if they too can rise in the face of their own unknowns. For courage, though deeply personal, ripples outward. When one soul stands steady amidst uncertainty, it gives others permission to believe they might do the same. And perhaps this is one of the deeper layers of meaning hidden in the fear of tomorrow. That by meeting it with integrity and resilience, you become not just a survivor, but a light bearer for those still lost in their night. Viktor Frankl often reflected on this ripple effect. The strength of one, he observed, can sustain the many, not through grand gestures, but through the simple, unwavering act of continuing to choose life, even when the weight of the unknown presses heavily. This strength is not a performance. It is not loud. It is a presence. A steadiness that communicates without words that despair need not be the final chapter. But to embody this steadiness, you must allow yourself first to be broken open. You must let the fear, the grief, the uncertainty touch you, not to destroy you, but to reveal what is unbreakable beneath. The parts of you that cling to illusions will crack. The parts of you that are rooted in truth will endure. And as the excess falls away, what remains is something quieter, stronger, more real. This process can feel like loss, and in many ways it is. Loss of certainty, loss of control, loss of the illusions that once shielded you. But what replaces them is not emptiness. It is a deeper connection to the essence of life itself. It is a new awareness that while tomorrow is unknown, today still holds enough for you to live, to act, to love, to create. And from this awareness, a new kind of peace begins to grow. Not a peace built on guarantees, but a peace rooted in trust. Trust that while the river of life will continue to flow unpredictably, you can float, you can steer, you can even swim when needed. Trust that meaning does not depend on certainty, but on your willingness to engage fully with whatever rises before you. This trust becomes the foundation upon which resilience is built. And resilience, once nurtured, allows you to face tomorrow not as a captive to your fear, but as someone who carries fear alongside hope. For hope, too, becomes a constant companion. Not the naive hope that all will be easy, but the grounded hope that even in hardship something can be redeemed, something can be learned, something can still make this life worth living. It is this balance, fear on one side, hope on the other, that keeps you human, that keeps you moving. To deny one is to lose your grounding. To hold both is to walk with a strange, steady grace. And as you hold this balance, you begin to notice something even more subtle. Gratitude finds its way into your heart, even in moments where fear still lingers. Gratitude for the breath in your lungs, for the hand you can still hold, for the chance to try again tomorrow. Gratitude becomes not a denial of fear, but a companion to it, softening its edges and reminding you of what remains. In this space, meaning ceases to feel like something distant, something waiting for you beyond the next challenge. It becomes something immediate, alive in the smallest acts, the words you speak, the silence you hold, the way you choose to rise again each morning. And perhaps as you continue walking this path, you come to understand what Frankl meant when he said that life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by the lack of meaning and purpose. The fear of tomorrow, heavy though it may be, is never what destroys you. What destroys you is only the refusal to search, to keep moving, to keep believing that even here, even now, life can hold meaning. So you keep walking, you keep breathing, you keep breathing. You keep choosing, even when your hands shake. And in that choosing, you discover that you are not just enduring life. You are shaping it moment by moment into something that, while imperfect, is undeniably yours. And slowly, almost without noticing, the fear that once felt suffocating becomes something else entirely. A quiet reminder that you are alive, that tomorrow is still unwritten, and that you hold the pen that will shape it. There is a subtle awakening that happens when you finally stop waiting for fear to vanish before you begin to live. You realize that life was never promising to take your fear away, but instead offering you a chance to move forward despite it. The fear of tomorrow becomes less a chain and more a teacher. One that constantly reminds you that your time is not infinite, that your choices matter, and that your courage will define more of your life than your circumstances ever could. You start to see that fear, in its rawest form, is not only about danger, it is about significance. You do not fear what does not matter. The trembling you feel when you think of the future is proof that there are things worth protecting, things worth striving for, and truths within you that long to be realized before time runs its course. This realization shifts the question from, how do I escape fear? To, how do I honor what my fear is pointing to? Suddenly, your energy is not wasted in endless attempts to silence the anxiety, but redirected into listening, into responding, into shaping your choices so they reflect what you value most. And as this shift deepens, so too does your relationship with suffering. You no longer see it as a pointless weight, but as a passage. An unwelcome one, perhaps, but a passage nonetheless. It is a place where illusions fall away, and what remains is raw, unfiltered, and often truer than the life you knew before. Suffering refines. It forces you to decide what is worth carrying forward and what can be left behind. Viktor Frankl observed this countless times. Those who found meaning in their suffering, even when their suffering could not be removed, discovered a strength that transcended explanation. Their circumstances were still hard, but their spirit was not crushed, because they had chosen to link their pain to a purpose greater than themselves. Sometimes that purpose was the love of another, sometimes the hope of a future contribution, sometimes simply the determination to show that the human soul can endure and remain human. And you begin to see that you, too, can choose this. You can decide that your suffering, your fear, your long nights of doubt will not be wasted. They can be turned into fuel for compassion, for courage, for a life that, while scarred, carries a depth that a life of comfort rarely knows. With each choice to keep moving, to keep seeking, to keep creating, the fear of tomorrow transforms. It stops being a storm looming on the horizon and becomes a horizon itself. Vast, open, holding endless possibilities. Some painful, yes, but many beautiful as well. And you begin to understand that the unknown, which once felt like an enemy, is also the very space where beauty, growth, and connection are born. For what is love, if not a step into the unknown? What is hope, if not a reaching toward what cannot be guaranteed? What is meaning itself, if not a continual willingness to risk your heart for something beyond survival? And so you stop demanding that life remove your fear, and instead, you learn to walk with it, to breathe alongside it, to let it sharpen your attention rather than numb you. Fear becomes not a wall, but a shadow, and shadows can only exist because there is light nearby. That light is your capacity to choose connection when you feel like withdrawing, to choose creation when you feel paralyzed, to choose trust when certainty is nowhere to be found. Each of these choices becomes a declaration that tomorrow, however uncertain, does not own you. And in the quiet after those choices, something unexpected often arrives. A deep calm. Not the calm of a life without turbulence, but the calm of someone who knows they can face the turbulence and still remain whole. A calm born from the trust that you do not need to see the full path to take the next step.